Welcome to Adventures in Consciousness, the interactive show that offers expansive conversation with pioneering new thought teachers and personal real-time guided journeys into the imaginal realm to access your soul's wisdom and discover how to live your greater story. Here is your host, human potentialist, soul mentor, and consciousness guide, Jennifer Evanko.
Hello, and welcome to Adventures in Consciousness, the Conversation. I'm your host, Jennifer Evanko, and today I would like to share with you a conversation with a special guest. But before we begin, I'd like to talk to you a little about what I'm doing here, what these shows are about. We know today this world is in crisis. We're facing new challenges, the crisis with COVID, the chaos and unrest with war, climate change, and economic instability, all symptoms of a global system breakdown. And it's so easy to feel isolated, to feel helpless, to feel some despair. But I want to tell you that these are times that are very powerful. I've spent my career working as a teacher, human potentialist, and soul mentor. And my dear friend and personal mentor, Dr. Jean Houston, was one of the greatest pioneers in the human potential movement. And she used to tell me, we are the people in the time of the parentheses, at the end of one era and not quite at the beginning of the next. She would go on to remind me that this is the time that the future is seated, this time of parenthesis or pause. I remember how often I and others would get upset because we'd feel this entropy, this sluggishness or slow down, and we couldn't get to what we were trying to achieve, that flow or that transformation. And she would always say, these are important times. This is probably the most important time. So it's imperative that we take time to listen deeply to the whispers from our own soul and to nourish our dreams, to find balance and peace within so that we can be the force of renaissance in this world, a world that so desperately needs each and every one of us. It's no longer the individual that's going to lead us in a renaissance. We can no longer wait for that other to lead the charge. It's time now to discover our own unique gifts and our own unique talents. So in my work as a soul mentor and human potentialist, I like to share tools and techniques with people that help them discover their greater capacities. And I created this show, Adventures in Consciousness, the Conversation, as a way to do two things. To first highlight a conversation with a person who has done this work, has been journeying in their own self-discovery and has discovered their unique gifts and talents and has found unique ways to share this with the world. Then on the second episode each month, I do 2 episodes. And the first is with a guest. The second episode will follow on the same theme with an experiential meditation journey. This is not just a guided meditation. These are journeys that take you into your own inner landscape and help you find the tools and the capacities hidden there and activate your greater human potentials. So today, my guest is multidimensional artist and marketing innovator, life-death transitionalist, and human potential explorer, Ann Fortunato-Heltzel. Ann has spent decades exploring spirituality and human potential. By trade, she is a visual artist, art director, graphic designer, and marketing guru. Her multidimensional marketing firm, Creative One, caters to conscious creatives and leading-edge thinkers, where she taps into the highest potentials for a brand through her signature meta insights. What I'd like to focus on today with Ann is her evolving journey, her personal journey. When last she was here, she was introducing us to her pioneering new genre of visual art and ocular meditation. Since then, I've been able to experience with her many of her pieces, and these are very powerful pieces of art. And I'm looking forward to her sharing today some of this journey and some of her pieces. Welcome, Ann. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Great to be here.
Yes. So We did have you on before, and I know we spoke a lot about your creative one and your marketing and your background, but I still want to go back to a little bit about the meta insights and then your journey that brought you here and what you're doing now.
Yes, yes. We have to kind of start just a tad bit at the very beginning. The gifts that I came into this incarnation with was the ability to assist in the death process. And for me, that's been from the side of spirit and helping souls cross over. I work with Christ consciousness. And um, so that, was where everything truly began for me when I was discovering that capacity in my 20s and 30s. And
I want to stop there for just a second because you and I have talked about this before, but even saying things like the Christ consciousness or the how we language what we do, it's been scary. It's a journey that's not been like when you're working in a business world with men and women and talking about spirituality, that can be hard. And you made that leap into fully realized self of Leanne.
yeah, it was interesting because it wasn't necessarily a bulleted, list I was going down. It just kind of happened organically. It was when I decided I'd started Creative One. So it was my own marketing firm. But I was still like finding out I'm still working within the same constructs of business. Right. And I'd really come to a personal impasse where I made this really conscious choice to not live in silos, to not be the Leanne that travels the world and works with gurus and just drinking in all that she can to grow spiritually and with human potential, and then like also make sure the marketing deadlines get met. Like I made this very conscious commitment, that I wanted to just be fully me, and didn't really know how life was going to unfold. And so again, it wasn't something that I had to take a course to do or even know what I was doing. I just had to be in surrender, and that surrender and trust. And when you just get to that point in yourself that you just know you have to be more and more of who you are. And so life unfolded and to meet that, and I realized that the gifts I had to go into what I will say these higher dimensions in order to help people cross over, I could go in that dimension on anyone's behalf. And so I started doing that with my marketing clients, and at first not telling them. And then it was like, no, this needs to be, out there. And so, just really led itself into being the best fit with the conscious creatives, with conscious businesses and people that could really grasp the way that I worked and see the value in looking at a business or a individual life path from that multidimensional space.
Can you tell us, because you said you go into higher dimensions to work, with for these people and find out things. Can you tell us what that looks like or what it feels like?
What it feels like to me, and it's not a dimension. A higher dimension isn't another location. It's another perspective and a deeper perspective. And so how I experience it is I see it as what I call fully realized. This dimension of being fully realized, a lot of people will call it the higher self. I use the term fully realized because in my perception, it's an entire dimension. So everything in that space, the earth, the grass, the leaves, the trees, the animals, everything is in that enlightened state. And um, so so to me, it's a dimension that I can step into, knowing that there's this multitude of other dimensions, and not really sure why, but it's like that dimension is my sweet spot. And from there, it's this 360-degree view of the purest potentials that are present for either an individual or for a company, because a company of individuals is just a collection of souls, right? So regardless if it's one person or, a multitude of people, we're dealing with souls.
So you meet them in that higher dimension.
I meet them, yes, I meet them there. And of course, with their permission, I go into that space to gather information. It's very much a conversation. And I collect that information in a written document that I share with the client. And it's multidimensional in the sense that it's going to address more than maybe the questions that they had or their challenges at hand. It's not reading the future. It is seeing and living and literally standing in that pure potential. Free will and choice and all of that still goes into play. And it's also multidimensional in the fact that there are all these dimensions of us and aspects of us that I know you so deeply understand, that you're going to, maybe you're going to get the information from me on, say, March 15th, right? And you're going to read it on March 15th, and you're going to have that intellectual perception. You can meditate on it, but there's all these other dimensions that are interacting with it as well. And so what people share with me so often is 3 months later, a year later, 4 years later, they'll be having an experience in life, and it's like this epiphany, like, oh my gosh, that was in the meta insights, like this paragraph, like it's completely talking about that. Because when we read something, we want to intellectually understand it. And that's just nature of having a brain and being a human being, right? But there's so much more information that's greater, that we can feel it in our heart sometimes, but oftentimes it takes time and for life to show up in a various amount of ways to shift us, so that it's like, oh, that's the depth of that piece of information. So that, you can understand it on that, March 15th, but March 15th, and 3 years later, it could have this deep, profound meaning to it. So it's a living document that you can go back to over and over again.
Beautiful. So you talk about silos, and I'm thinking about we all go through this period of, as we mature, I start off in accounting and business, and then I had my spiritual side and doing trips with Deepak or different journeys, but it was siloed. It was totally separate. And then I was a mom of little kids like yourself. And then there's this artist side of you. And I kind of would love to share how these are the meta insights probably led into bringing all of these different parts of you together. Right. How was it for you personally?
Yeah. So I was, performing these messages with the meta insights for my clients. And it got to the point about four and a half years ago, a client challenged me with, where you go on my behalf, I want you to take me there. And so it was one of those, okay, let's see if we can do that, right? And that became this immersive experience with clients that I do in a retreat format, where that space that I go to, I take them. And the best way to describe it is a very experiential, active meditation. Typically, when we meditate, it's a singular experience. We're walking the beach, we're feeling the breeze, whatever that meditation experience is. This is an experience where we're all creating it together and adding the richness to it. And it becomes a vibration that we can begin to completely experience what the other person or people are experiencing. So it's, an exciting and rather intense experience. And so when those started happening with clients over, they're usually like 2 or 3 days, I felt the need. I actually heard the need. Everything is this guidance, right? That drops in of, there needs to be a way to take what's happening in that dimension that you're playing in and bring it into this reality, to anchor it in, to give it form. And so because I am a trained artist, I went to art school, that was the natural thing for me to do. to be honest, Jennifer, I never understood, learning like art history and going to art school, like abstract paintings. Like I never aligned with them. Um, and yet that's what came in for me to do, is during these immersive sessions, to start channeling that energy of that fully realized space into a painting. And it's just being an open channel, hearing a color, or what to do with the paint. And so it's completely guided. There really is no art, um, like qualities that you have to have with it, because you're just an open channel. And so I started creating those and having my clients create those during the process, discovering that we as human beings need that freedom to express ourselves. And how many of us from a very young age were taught to stay in the lines, that you don't mix these two colors because they'll make mud. Like we're taught all these rules, right? And so just that experience to be in that expansive state of play opens up one's connection to those higher consciousness realms. And so it became an integral part. And so that was okay. Now now I'm taking people in, and now we're painting. And the thing that I heard at the end of 2019 was that I just needed to paint. And more than anything,
So you
Jennifer,
painting personally.
And it's this constant state of surrender and being open and going, okay. Or my inner mantra is always, bring it on, right? So I what came in was to open myself up to peace and to be the channel for peace.
Before we go there, I want to go step back just one more time. As a human potentialist, some of the things we learn, first of all, you're stepping into this realm, this energy in meditation, in a journey. I like to call them journeys and not guided meditations, but because they are full, and they're as real as you make them. The importance of suspending disbelief for a little while and playing in that imaginal. So you're entering into that place. But as a student of human potential, we want to bring things in through all our senses and all our, through our body. And so actually moving and painting and feeling textures and brings in more information back into the brain, into the body, and the ability to manifest things. So
Yes.
I love this method you've created. Then speak to me a little bit about the frequency too, because there's something more than just paint on a board.
Right. So what has clearly come through in this entire time was to just to connect to one specific frequency. And that's usually a process for me of it dropping in what the next frequency is to be. I actually do my meta insights process with that frequency. So I actually engage with, for example, the frequency of love, and have that same dialogue I would if it were a person or a company. And I'm always blown away of the message that comes through, because it oftentimes is not what we perceive. It's definitely not the Webster's dictionary, right, meaning of these words or frequencies. So and then I just kind of feel it lock in. I know when my energy is locked in and open to begin that painting process. And
I imagine, for example, you mentioned Webster dictionary, and you think about love, that word locks you into a mental meaning of what it is. And so when you go into meta insights, you're going into that fully realized place, just like you would with a person.
Right. And getting this very, very expanded view. And it kind of throws everything out the window. I can tell you, what I remember from the meta insights of love is it's not the love of a parent and a child. It's not the beloved of, the person that you live with. It's it's not the compassion and love that we feel for our pets or the world. It's it's creation itself. Love is literally creation itself. And so, the insights really dove into that. Um, and by the time I was done with that, I didn't intellectually have a different perception of love. I was in the frequency of it, because I do step out of the mind when I'm painting, and what I really hear is, it's time to paint, and this is what you're doing, in the sense that I don't come to the studio going, oh, I know I'm going to be using this color or that brush or whatever. It's just that I know that the time is open for me to paint, and the majority of the time, I'm actually like kind of scared. I'll hear like, and I'll like, there's this inner dialogue, like, I'm supposed to do what? Like, that's crazy. And then I do it, and then I step back and go, oh my gosh, that's like so amazing. So it's this completely getting out of the way as much as humanly possible.
Beautiful. So we talk about textures, you're feeling it, and visual, you're seeing it. What other senses do you bring in?
Yeah, so I had done, a number of these paintings, and then what dropped in was, if you'd like, if it sounds fun to you, bring in the sense of sound. And so I, within 24 hours, came across an amazing multidimensional musician, Ian Morris, and he worked with me on love. And so with that painting, at his request, what he was dreaming into was for me to send him many of the actual paints, the pigments that I was going to be using, and he put them on a somatics table for 5 weeks with the hertz frequency of love going into that cymatics table and the paints. And then he tapped in. I sent him the meta insights, so he was tapping into that same frequency, and then he downloaded the music and created the special music for that painting. And so it just brought a whole nother level to that experience. It's interesting, Jennifer, because you don't have to meditate with these paintings. Peace can just be hanging in a room. Nobody needs to really be aware that it is a multidimensional portal into the frequency of peace. It can simply be that abstract painting on the wall that's really colorful, because the frequency is shifting that room to the vibration of peace. It's when you choose to engage with it that you can have an even deeper experience. And then to add on the sound is even greater.
So that's what I wanted to talk about. You mentioned the musician could slip into the frequency and write the music, and you're talking about, but for somebody that's sitting out there and has no experience with slipping into a frequency or meditation, how do you think their experience would be of this? You mentioned in a space they would get it, but
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, you know, it's a painting and it's music. It's things that we're so aware of and accepting of in our world. And with the paintings, it's actually going through our retina and going right directly into the part of our brain that is connected to the pineal gland. So it's bypassing the intellect. It's the same thing with the music. It's you know, you don't have to know that it's vibrating. It's at a certain hertz frequency for it to be interacting with your spirit.
mm-hmm. Beautiful. I like to tell people how we all have different gifts, and some people are that high creative that can bring forth this paintings like you are, or tap into it. But we also need the person that can then take that frequency and manifest and create with it in the world around them at the practical level, hanging it in their wall and being inspired to something in business or something in their day-to-day life. That it takes all levels, this broad spectrum of being human in order to create this world that we want.
Right. I really believe now, especially, that I'm creating a tool, and then those out there are utilizing the tool. I've had so many healers, um, you know, using these pieces of art, whether it's having their clients sit with the art prior to a healing session. I have an amazing healer that has purchased the art as a piece of tapestry, so on fabric, printed on fabric, and she's laid that on her healing table, so the person actually lays on the art. They don't even see it, but she understands the portals that are on the painting, so she's working through the person and the portals that they're lying on. So it's really a tool, and that's wide open how people can actually work with it. I have clients that say, okay, I'm going to go into this space, making these business decisions. I'm going to make them practically, but I'm also going to, his phrase is, I'm going to take it to the painting. And he'll go into meditation, focus on the painting that's aligned specifically to him and his fully realized self, because I can personalize them. And he opens up and has epiphanies, basically, that he does not believe he would have had just thinking about it.
Well, how powerful that is too, for, take the frequency of peace right now, that we want so much to see a world in peace. And yet it's also important to have peace inside of us first, and then we can radiate peace around us and in our environment. So just playing with that frequency and immersing yourself in that frequency has to be a powerful tool.
We're in this situation right now in the world. I mean, we've been in various situations, right, like all the time. But this one, it's pretty dramatic right now with what's going on, with the Ukraine, right? And so you can sit there and go, what can I do? I can pray. I can maybe send money to, the Red Cross, whoever's able to help. But we can also vibrate ourselves at the frequency of peace. And like you said, it always starts with us. So it's not a selfish act. If we can intensify that love or that peace or all of those things that we know the world needs within ourselves, then we're changing the world around us. And it has to affect everything going out. It's just quantum science, right? It's going to affect everything going out from us.
Yes. Thank you, Leanne. We're going to take a break now, but before we do, I just want to mention, stay tuned, because we are going to experience one of these portal pieces with Leanne. She's going to describe the meta insights specifically with this one piece, and then we will have our own experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
There is no greater mystery in life than you. So why not take a fully experiential plunge into the depths of your being to uncover and retrieve all the secrets and wisdom your soul is crying out for you to know? If you enjoy Adventures in Consciousness, the conversation, you'll love Adventures in Consciousness, the course. Join Jennifer in this unique 13-week series of journeys specifically designed to unlock the mysteries of yourself. Each week, you'll journey progressively deeper into the meta realm, where, freed from the limitations of your mind, you'll get to play and explore the inner and outer reaches of your awareness. The next series of Adventures in Consciousness, the course, is starting soon. Find out more and stake your place at jenniferivanko.com.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to Adventures in Consciousness, the conversation. You are listening to our guest, Ann Fortunato-Heltzel, and we have a wonderful surprise today with her latest piece of art. Ann,
Yes.
you want to tell us about MetaArt?
Yes, so this piece that we're going to be talking about today is unity. And the way this painting came about is I actually did an immersive meta insights session with a musician. His name is Johnny Buffalo, because we knew we wanted to work together. And he knew that he wanted to create the music track for it. And in this session, what dropped in to create was unity. And I had no idea what I was about to encounter with it. I really felt like, okay, it's another frequency. It's a big one. It's unity. Really discovering that unity isn't something we create. It's not something, it literally is everything that is. It is the I am. And so I'd love to share the meta insights that came through.
Please do.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is, and it's not long, so I'm just going to read it. This is the information that dropped in.
So you went into meditation wanting to find out about unity, and that's where you discovered this meta insight.
So this is what I did prior to painting, starting the creative process. This is the piece I was talking about earlier, that I have this communication, and then I know when I've locked in and I'm energetically prepared to start painting. And I'll read it, and then I'll just tell you a little bit of what I experienced as well. Okay. Unity is the self-organization of energies, each thread unique unto itself, yet perfectly balanced to an opposing energy, therefore bringing sacred balance to the whole. It is not a coming together or joining. It is a balancing to a neutral state. Once in a balanced state, the entire organism is unified and indeed whole. To think of it as a pendulum. On one swing is love and the other hate, but understand that one does not take over and win above the other. When these two opposing forces balance, they create a new center point that is actually just space, not one or the other, but neither. It's within that space that is unity, where no concepts exist. It is the space of no separation. So to return to unity is to return to the state of no separation or oneness. This is a big step to see life from this place, but it is an evolutionary view. One always needs to internalize a new or different perspective, or the kind of perspective that may be understood to a degree, yet not fully experienced by the collective. Answers are not outside oneself. How can that be when the universal forces are within each cell, each subparticle? It is humanity's deep honor and ultimate challenge to not find truth, but to allow wholeness without judgment of the path to it. You will get distracted at your best intention when living in two frames of thought, the perspective of the seeker, the knower of life in this new awakened state, and the perspective of the broken record of this reality. Know this, unity is more than two sides coming together. Those sides are simply symptoms of imbalance. Unity is balance within a framework that is beyond the current mass awareness. Let it grow in your awareness, be open to wholeness, and it will lead your tender heart to unity.
Wow.
Yes. And the visuals that I saw were these two forces that came together, and this double helix, and then it was nothing. It was nothing, it was everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I understood not until after the painting was done, because I'm really, again, not using the intellect while I'm painting. And after the painting was done, it was like I couldn't explain it. It was like it was like this foreign object was in my studio. It wasn't, oh, this is peace. It was, what is this? Because we live in duality, right? We don't live in unity. And so, really calling in, I know, I called you in to sit with unity, to understand this really unique frequency of something that we come from, and when we die, we return to, but it's not our living experience. And it's when I understood that this is an alchemic tool, and it absolutely can be in a room and be affecting the space and the people that are in it, but it's more than that. It's an actual tool that can be used. Maybe you can speak a little to your experience with it.
Yes. Actually, it's interesting because my background in the early days was a lot of Vedanta, a lot of Indian Ayurveda and Vedanta. And the Adi Shankara has a wonderful book. He's I think it's 8th century, or he's a sage in the Upanishads and the Vedanta in India from BC, before Christ.
Okay.
And he would speak of these things that you speak of as the unified field, is how he would say, or unity is that unified field, or that place beyond our duality. Beyond his book is non-dualism. So, and as you said before, we try to take things in intellectually first and understand it, and it's paradoxical to try and figure out non-duality from being in duality. It's
Yeah.
just, so my experience was to drop out of the mind in front of that piece, to be in that space of beyond all knowing, beyond the intellect. You drop that. And it's funny because when I've taught people meditation in the past, I've actually run into people who don't want to drop into that nothingness. They're afraid to drop into that nothingness. And it's actually the opposite of nothingness. It's everythingness. It's wholeness. It's fullness. It's being aware of everything, but nothing in particular. And that's the closest I can say to unity.
Right. It is that unified field where everything is birthed from, where all the dimensions then come from. And calling it an alchemic tool because it can be used by those who know how to use that energy.
Well, and alchemy is something interesting because it sounds like this woo-woo magic, but it can be looked at as a science of this new age and what we're doing. It's taking into consideration emotions, people, energy, time, other things than just the paint and the pigment and the paper. There's if you've stood in front of any major piece of art, you can be moved by it emotionally. And then when you stand in front of some of this MetaArt or these intentional pieces, you can find that portal in. It's more than just chemistry,
It is, and it's not of the mind, right? It's of the heart. It's of the feeling. I had a woman standing in front of Unity 2 days ago, and she just started weeping. She just couldn't. She's like, I don't even know why I'm crying. I'm just crying. It's because that's where we're really functioning from when we're dealing with frequencies. It's that same if you walk in a room and you can feel the tension, you're not thinking about the tension in the room, you're feeling it, right? Yeah. And
But it brings to mind anything you're doing, the energy you're putting into it. That's
right.
interesting.
That's why my only role is to be as open a channel and empty as possible while I'm doing
Beautiful.
them.
Well, I'd love to I want to make sure we have time to get to the piece. I know we have a 10-minute meditation, and I want you to describe a little bit more of the process of unity and what we can experience here.
Yeah, so actually the beginning is of the meditation is going to give us the rules, which are practically none. You're simply going to relax and pick one spot of the painting and stare at that one spot and then just relax your gaze. But the meditation will actually go through those instructions. And again, the music was created specifically by a multidimensional musician. After he had the meta insights, he had the beginnings of the painting. So the music is really, really important as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. So let's go ahead and share this beautiful journey through unity. Welcome back. Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you, Leanne, for sharing that.
Yeah, I do just want to add too that about 24 people contributed to that painting. I heard that unity, isn't one person, right? It's a collective. So many people added to that painting.
Having been in some of your processes before, I know the painting is not just one layer. It's multi-layers and multi-dimensional. And
Yes.
so, yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Sharon. Leanne, if you would like to learn more about Leanne's work and who she is, please get in touch with her at her website, leanneheltzel.com. I also want to announce that we have a workshop coming up that Leanne and I are doing in Pittsburgh called the Holographic Matrix. And we're going to combine this unity and some of her other pieces with some human potential work. And we're going to play together for a day. And that's March 26th. If you're interested in that, you can find more information on my website, or I'm sure Leanne's. My website is www.jenniferevanko.com. I wanted to mention that we have a new series starting in our morning meditations, which is a free meditation, group meditation that I host every morning. And we're going to start connecting with the phases of the moon and seeing how those energies can help us with our intentions and our manifesting our desires. So we'll be starting that this week with the new moon and going right on through to 29 days. You're welcome to join us free, and it's anytime, any day, and come in your pajamas if you want. It's all on Zoom. Again, go to my website for more information. And if you'd like to learn about more courses coming up, just sign up for my newsletter. So thank you, Leanne. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
Just really thank you so much for having me. This time went fast and it was so much fun.
And there's so much more we can talk about.
And hey, if you're in Pittsburgh, come play with us.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think that is about it. Oh, I did want to mention the next show, Adventures in Consciousness, the conversation, will be an experience. And so I'm going to take you on 2 meta journeys where we will experience a little bit more about what Leanne has been talking about this unity consciousness. We will be going in and diving into some of the tools and hidden resources that are there for you, for each of you. So please join me next time on Adventures in Consciousness, the conversation. Thank you.